going to the polls and voting, but it's legally it's not an election according to the Democrats.
It's insane to me. It's absolutely nuts to me because, again, you know, you're a progressive, so you're talking about the issues that they would want to talk about. And then what do you do? What do you do when you're in that situation, right? You know that you're a loyal Democrat. You've been a Democrat for years. You care about the people's issues, working class issues, unions.
Right.
And so did you get arrested?
I sue the bastards.
So did they arrest you, I guess? I'm thinking like Jill Stein, she got the media there and, you know, got some public sympathy by actually getting arrested, or did you just say, fine, I'll leave?
Well, so far I've avoided that. I haven't wanted to get arrested. I don't enjoy being in jail.
Yeah, nobody would. So that's, I guess
my claim is that they're the ones breaking the law. They're violating my freedom of speech, my freedom of association, my freedom of movement within the United States. Why should I go to jail? They should.
So if they just magically was to put you in charge of the DNC, would you let them in the building?
In the KDP?
Yeah.
In the Democrat? Of course I would.
Even
I would.
even Edelin and Brashear, the crooks?
Of course I would, because I don't want to sink to their level.
Right, exactly. You want to be fair and give everyone equal access.
Free, honest, open debate on the issues. It seems, you know, my impression of the KDP and the Fayette County Party for the last 7 years is that one thing they never seem to get around to is debating issues. All they talk about is getting at the vote and knocking on doors.
And the turnout rate, I believe it was real low, but I believe it's 13% in 2015.
Oh, that could be true. That should be a scandal.
It is nuts. They're sitting there saying Venezuela needs to be invaded because they don't have a democracy that's functioning. Meanwhile, 87% of the people aren't even going out to go vote for the governor's race. I heard a joke. They said that
primary. I don't know. Was it the general election with 13%? I don't know.
The primary. Okay.
Right.
The joke was most of Kentucky was arguing about who won the Kentucky Derby because of that disqualification argument, and most of them didn't even realize that there was a governor's race going on.
Yeah. Well, it's not a joke. I think that's probably the reality.
Well,
although they've been seeing a lot of ads from my three establishment opponents.
There was a Malcolm X quote, too. He had said that the media is probably the most powerful organization out here because they can make the victims look like the perpetrators and the criminals make the criminals look like victims.
I totally agree with that.
Okay.
The corporate media today is a huge part of the problem in this whole country.
I got you. There's you want to legalize all forms of marijuana?
Right.
So
Colorado.
Yeah, so recreation. So you want not just the cheap stuff, but the real dank, real evolved, the real good stuff.
Well, I haven't looked into it, but if it's all legal, yeah.
Okay. I want to. It's crazy because the quality is a lot higher here. But the prices are actually more expensive than Kentucky's weed. Kentucky's weed is actually cheaper than Colorado's.
Well, I wouldn't know.
Yeah, I know.
The only reason I haven't used marijuana for the last 30, 35 years is that it's illegal.
Right.
And I don't want to get a drug charge for using a substance that has been used for thousands of years for medicinal purposes. It's not worth the risk.
I once read that it was Kentucky's #1 cash crop. Anyways.
Could be. I don't know.
Now you're a good guy, so I felt like I guess that was maybe a problem with Kentucky's because that's my vice. I don't care for I don't even care for alcohol. And now that I'm in Colorado, it feels awesome, right? I get to just peacefully drive to the store, peacefully go home, no problems, no worries, right. and then I stay to myself and I eat a bunch of Doritos and drink Mountain Dew. So.
Right, you're not driving under the influence. It's not a problem.
Right. Whereas it was all, because in Kentucky, it's illegal, so it all had to be like on the hush hush. And then there was a lot of shady stuff too. So I thought it brought the criminal element was, the danger wasn't the drug itself. It was that it was illegal.
The danger was the war on drugs.
Yeah. So you're opposed to the war on drugs?
Yes. Especially for cannabis.
I agree. I mean, you can cut them at the knees if you had some red light district, have police presence right over there, and then now you don't have all those sort of Al Capones, because you're making a lot of people rich. The people that are willing to take the chance, you create an incentive by making it illegal.
Yeah. So last year, Matt Bevin got into foreign policy.
Interesting.
It's one of our interesting issues. In November, he signed an executive order saying that the Commonwealth of Kentucky, the government, shall not make any contracts with companies or individuals who support the boycott, divestment, and sanction movement against Israel. And something like half the states have done this. Where you're taking sides on the Israeli side of this conflict that's been going on since 1967. Yeah, he did that. That's probably the first thing we'll do if we win, is annul that executive order.
His people, I called the Bevin's office, and I was just asking about the policies that he's passed, and they said that it was to prevent people from discriminating against Israeli-owned businesses.
Well, that's what a boycott is.
Yeah, I know. So it seems like it goes directly against the BDS movement, boycott, divest, and sanction, and that's a peaceful.
Yeah, it's aimed directly at that. And it's a non-violent tactic that has been used, forever. You boycott businesses in order to change the policies of their government. And it's perfectly legal if it's not, if it's a bunch of individuals joining the movement. It's not a state action. So, Bevin has taken the side of the oppressors in that conflict. And there are Palestinians, thousands of them, who live in Kentucky.
Huh.
And he is discriminating against a rather important segment of the Kentucky people.
The Israeli-Palestinian conflict has gone on for a long time. There's a lot of talking points that they use. They say that the Palestinians use children as human shields, and they say, a lot of times they'll say, well, they started it, but there's usually some precipitating force overall. So do you want to comment just in general?
Yeah, if you look at the balance of forces, it's like the Palestinians have slingshots, and the Israelis and Americans have had the most modern weapons that exist. Since 1967, it's been a totally unequal contest. Palestinians are at Israel and the U.S. mercy. And so to say that they started it, and every incident, Noam Chomsky has studied this and written books about it. Every flare-up between Israel and the occupied territories, the Israelis always start it. They always start the violence. And there might be, so recently, in recent years, there have been demonstrations in the Gaza Strip where Palestinians get together and hold signs and shout slogans, and the Israeli troops open fire. And this is just common. And then, maybe some group will fire an inaccurate missile into Israel, and then Israel goes nuts and claims that the Palestinians started it. It's a pattern that repeats over and over again. The Israelis are always the ones who started the violence. And then when the Palestinians respond, the Israelis just double down.
What do you think is the solution? Because it seems like, don't we give USA to both countries, and then we're also the empire, and it seems like if we had a fair deal, a two-state solution wouldn't be difficult to achieve.
I agree. I was going to say that the solution is the two-state solution, where the Palestinians get their own country in the West Bank, East Jerusalem, and Gaza Strip. And that is pretty much the consensus of the entire international community, except the U.S., Israel, and, a few Pacific islands that are under U.S. control or influence. That's been the consensus since 1975 or 73.
Wow. So they've had
earlier, 1970, let's say.
So they've had the solution right in front of them the whole time, and they're just not doing it.
Entire time, 50 years.
Why do you think? I mean, I don't want to speculate on the culture, but why do you think it is? Why, if you've been an oppressed people at one point in time, it would seem like you would want to be, different. You want to be. Frederick Douglass says your freedom. You cannot separate. No, Nelson Mandela. He said you can't separate your freedom from mine. If you're not free, then we can't have an equal relationship or equal contracts, and we can't make a fair deal.
Right.
So why do they do that? Why can't they just leave Palestine?
Countries are dominated by the most influential economic institutions within a country, and the Israeli government is dominated by institutions that just want to keep the land and not the people.
I see.
They want to have the land, the water resources, and the other resources, natural gas or fishing in the Mediterranean. And the Palestinians have always been in the way, nothing but an obstacle. And the same is true in this country. What do the Palestinians offer to the U.S. military? Nothing. But Israel is a vastly powerful military force, and our military cooperates very closely with them to dominate the whole Middle East. And so the Palestinians have nothing to offer. So, as a result, they get imprisoned in the largest open-air prison in the world, Gaza Strip.
Well, yeah, no, it's depressing actually when I think about it. Chris Hedges says he's not going to compromise on Palestine anymore, and so that's where I'm at right now.
Well, what does that mean?
I guess just when you get into the politics and you're talking about universal health care and you're talking about this and that, and I guess the plight of the Palestinians fall back to the back burner, or they just become...
Okay, so maybe Hedges is saying that he's not going to support any candidate who doesn't make this an issue?
Right, exactly. So he's going to make sure that he's going to continue to defend Palestine until a change happens. He's not going to leave them out to dry.
Okay, well, I feel like I made that decision about 1980.
Wow. So really, I mean, how long have you been in Kentucky?
52.
52? 1952?
Since 1982, that would be 37 years.
Oh, my bad.
In Lexington, Fayette County, yeah.
82, that was when I was born. I guess I'm just frustrated because it's like, where were you at when I was, growing up? I could have used some truth tellers, some people telling me
I was in Lexington.
Yeah, you were. That's exactly where you were at. You were also, you mentioned that you went to MIT. You were taught by Noam Chomsky, or how you had some relationship?
Yeah, I took 2 classes from him. The first one was U.S. foreign policy after World War II, and the second one was on basically how to be a political activist. It was co-taught with another professor, but I was in the political science department. So those 2 classes, especially the first one, were extremely influential on me ever since then. That was 1976.
No, that's amazing. That's awesome. He's getting older. I guess I'm gonna be sad when there's not many Howard Zinn, Edward Said. There's a lot of those folks who give talks. There aren't that many of them left.
Well, new ones are coming up all the time, and they have different styles.
Yeah.
Noam Chomsky's style has always been very
boring,
academic.
Yeah.
That, he's got all these footnotes and everything, and very careful in his conclusions. And Chris Hedges is another one who's very influential, and with good reason. He's one of the best today.
Hey, there's a guy also, I agree, Scahill from The Intercept. I like some of the stuff Scahill's been saying.
Jeremy Scahill, okay. Yeah, I'm not as familiar with his work. There were some others that I don't think are as well known. There's somebody I follow a lot named Eric Sousa. And he writes for various publications. One of them is called Washington's Blog. But he calls himself an investigative historian. So he's looked at issues, topics coming, all the way from the time of Jesus up to the present day. He wrote a book called Why the Holocaust Happened. And half of the book is about the Apostle Paul. Really interesting.
Yeah, no, that is cool. I'll have to check them out. There's the universal single-payer health care you're in favor of?
Definitely.
Taxing millionaires and billionaires and lower taxes for the middle and lower classes?
Right. I'm a Bernie Sanders Democrat.
So that makes you an Eisenhower Republican? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, it's actually, that's just...
Yeah, maybe it does in that respect. I mean...
it just shows how...
Yeah, actually, Eisenhower and Bernie Sanders are not too different.
Yeah.
In certain important ways.
The Eisenhower tax plan, actually, it was 90%, but then it wasn't that he was just taking, all their stuff. What he was doing was he had a high tax rate, and he would force the company to invest in themselves, to hire more workers, to create more jobs, and so essentially to make their company better. So it wasn't even like, I'm going to take your money and spend it how I want to, but I'm going to, I'm going to take this money if you don't hire new people, if you don't expand your business and operations.
In this country, I don't think they could have evaded that by building plants or moving their plants to another country.
Right,
so,
right.
Yeah, that's an excellent tax plan. Just bring back the 1950s.
Yeah, I see bridges and so much infrastructure that was built in the elementary schools. There was just so much stuff. The interstate, I think the interstate was built. So many things was built in the 50s, and then we built it all. Let's just stop. We're done.
Let's stop taking care of it too.
Yeah, it's falling apart. So you're for infrastructure investment?
Right. Including weatherization of homes to save energy and building solar panels for renewable energy.
What do you think about universal broadband internet?
I think it's a good idea. We're having something of a class divide here where poor people have to go to the library, and what if all the computers are in use? They just got to wait.
Sometimes they don't even have internet. The internet's down. They have old computers, and then you have to drive there too. So you'd have to have the resources to do that. Yeah.
They're going to get there somehow. Yeah, if they do away with public transportation, then it becomes a real problem.
I guess I'm thinking of just the rural, Appalachia. If you can get everybody internet, then self-education is the most powerful form of education, so that at least gives them a tool that they could use to, just find out what's going on politically, find out stuff about their, medical conditions, opportunities, jobs, registering to vote. Okay.
I agree.
Okay. Energy efficiency and renewables. This is one of your major planks on your 2000.
I worked in the state energy office doing that for 13 years. So I know how it's done. I was bringing in federal funds from the U.S. Department of Energy and improving efficiency in the residential, commercial, industrial sectors in Kentucky. Yeah, we can do it. It requires the will.
There's would you invest in renewable energy as governor?
I would hire or appoint commissioners of the Public Service Commission, which is very influential, regulates the gas industry, the electric utility industry, also telecommunications. I would hire, I keep saying hire, but appoint commissioners who understand that efficiency is the cheapest, fastest, and most effective way to meet the gap between energy supply and energy demand. So yeah, the PSC could have a tremendous effect, but it's been mainly captured by the industries that it supposedly regulates. Very common phenomenon.
PSC, the Public
Service Commission.
Okay. What would you say are the leading renewable alternatives or the technology that you would, I guess, lean on, or what do you support? Are there any?
Solar and low-head hydro for Kentucky. For many other states, wind power is competitive right now with coal plants, but Kentucky's winds are not as good. But yeah, low-head hydro is, so we don't have to build any more dams. There are dams on existing rivers in Kentucky that could be refitted with hydroelectric turbines. I know some people who have done one on the Kentucky River.
What's a low-head hydroelectric?
Yeah, that just means the river doesn't have to be, the huge size like the Columbia River.
Yeah.
It can be smaller rivers.
Could it work for streams, or does it need to be a river?
Yeah. For a stream, you could put a little turbine in and power your house.
Huh. Yeah. The Rio Grande, actually, the headwaters goes right by where I'm at, but
how big is it there?
Very tiny, very little. It's only maybe 50 feet across and 5 feet deep, 6 feet deep. But it's dry. It's a desert.
That's somewhere.
Well, it's somewhere, but I guess it's an opportunity because it's very dry. It's a dry, cold desert here. It's windy, so I think the wind potential is better. But
tremendous.
Since it's dry, it seems like water's a precious resource. So why would you not be for a hydroelectric dam? I guess I don't know the cost of something like that, but you just said a turbine could power your house, so you probably could do something for small communities with that. I don't know.
Yeah.
So worker-owned businesses and co-ops you've mentioned prevent National Guard from being sent out of the U.S.
Yes. They're being used as part of the U.S. military. So, for example, in the war in Iraq, 2003, National Guard troops were sent to fight in an illegal war of aggression that the Bush and Cheney administration managed to get approval from Congress. They certainly didn't get approval from the UN, so the entire war was illegal. The entire invasion of Iraq was a huge war crime, and we need our National Guard people at home, responding to emergencies, anywhere in the United States and Puerto Rico. We simply should not be sending them to fight in illegal wars.
So you're saying National Guard I guess every state has their own National Guard, so you're saying they should just kind of stay within their own boundaries?
Stay within the U.S. and Puerto Rico, yes.
Because you're right, the Iraq War was atrocious, but they were sending but the National Guard, they kept sending them for like 2 or 3 or 4 tours of duty. They kept leaning on them a lot more than they had in the past. And then
that's right. All of that needs to stop.
And then Donald Trump is wanting to send the National Guard from the different states down to the border. What do you?
Yeah, that's a different issue.
Okay.
I mean, I don't think very much of what he proposes makes any sense.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't propose making that illegal.
Okay. Well, you did say...
You know, only if it's unnecessary. You shouldn't do it if there's no point, and I think there's no point.
Yeah. Well, you did say to keep it in the United States, so that would be more of a domestic issue.
Yeah, it's a domestic question.
Abolish the death penalty.
That was part of my pro-life platform. So when I call myself pro-life,
yeah,
it includes abolishing the death penalty, and it includes supporting Planned Parenthood. And this confuses the Christian right. They have no idea what I'm talking about. But it's back to what we talked about at the beginning, that when you make all abortions illegal, you make the problem worse. I call myself the most pro-life candidate running.
You're also the most progressive candidate.
I agree. I make that claim all the time.
The death penalty, I guess I respect you on the death penalty because it's more progressive than me. I grew up in Gallatin County, and you had Marco Chapman, who was just, he was trying to attack his ex, and then he killed 1 or 2 kids, and that was the last execution that happened in Kentucky. And so I felt like that's justified. That's, you know, he took those kids' life, and so I didn't want to feed and house them, and I felt like it was just.
Oh, well, no, wait a minute. It costs a lot more to the state to execute somebody than it does to imprison them for life. So the economic argument is just shot from day one.
Well, why is it? You're saying because of the appeals, or why is it more expensive to?
They make every aspect of the case, more involved and more expensive because they don't want to execute somebody who's innocent. So it never saves money to execute somebody. The legal proceedings cost more than keeping them in prison.
I guess I follow the case pretty closely, and he was basically saying, "Yeah, go ahead, kill me. I'm ready." And so they just kind of pushed him through the system real quick. And so the part I guess I like about it is how you're just so opposed to murder that you're going to be better than them, and you're not going to. The state shouldn't be killing people either. So I feel like there's just a lot more love and empathy coming from you because you just love all mankind, all people.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if this particular individual could ever have repented and seen the light and become a changed person, but in theory, that's possible with anyone.
Well,
so if you kill them, you eliminate the possibility that they will convert.
Right. I also wanted to know more about what had happened because it seemed like there wasn't really much information. Was he on drugs? What was the, I guess, motivation so that way you could actually pinpoint the problem and you can fix it and stop it from happening?
You know, I even favor the life in prison for people like Adolf Hitler because every day or every other day you could have had a different psychiatrist go in there or a different reporter and try to find out, what was wrong with this guy. I'm assuming he would never have converted, but he would be a specimen for scientific research.
Right.
How does somebody become that evil? Well, I think it's an important question.
Yeah.
Because he's not the only mass murderer in history. So to have him there in prison, being examined and questioned every day, could have some value.
Yeah, there's also the whole idea of the criminal justice system, whether it's fair, and then the prison industrial system, and then the people that are charged versus that aren't charged.
Right. Tremendously racist.
Yeah, well, I think of Norway. I think of their model is essentially it's that you're free to come and go. You murdered a whole bunch of people, or at least the documentary I watched, the guy who had killed some people. It looks like a plush university. It looks like a nice, wonderful, resort, a nice, place you'd want to pay to go. And the idea is